Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. There's a lot of discussions about AI. I mean, everywhere you look, people are talking about AI data centers, the likes of Irene, NBIS, and then you have obviously the big players like Nvidia and AMD that are selling the hardware to the data centers. You have kind of Oracle and, left, right, center is all about AI, and I think there are segments of the market that are getting forgotten. In addition to that, we know that NIO has been struggling over the past 4 years valuation-wise, but I would say that now the valuations start to become really interesting for me. I mean, I don't want to make the same mistakes as in the past, but I would say that for me, the valuation is simply very, very tempting right now. I mean, we had the Q3 numbers, at least the delivery numbers, at 87,000 or so US dollar, and I would say wouldn't be surprised to have a delivery number in let's say Q4 of 127,000 cars for NIO. Actually, it might sound like quite a lot, but it's just like for NIO, we've seen on multiple occasions, for example, from Q1 of this year to Q2 of this year, in which they increased their sales essentially about what? I mean, 70% quarter over quarter in terms of number of deliveries. So a 45% delivery increase from Q3 to Q4 wouldn't be, out of the play. And I would say that that doesn't look too unrealistic, because if you let's go back a little bit to the monthly deliveries, right? On this scale, I've added the 2026 expectations as well, be it quite low in the beginning of the year, but let's forget the 2026 numbers for a moment and focus on the gray bars. You can see that I wouldn't be surprised if NIO builds upon the September great delivery numbers of around 35,000 cars, maybe coming around 40,000 cars in October and November, and finishing the year with an all-time high delivery number of 45,000. Now we know that over the past couple of weeks, I believe the first week of October has been the Chinese Golden Week vacations, and it's been quite a little bit of data coming out of China, especially when it comes to the weekly insurance registration numbers, which we cover and follow closely every single week. In fact, if we look at the last couple of weeks, we can see that the numbers that we've got for week 40 are correct. I would also say that the numbers that we got for week 41 are a little bit in question, since the traditional players like CNEV News hasn't reported on them yet. But I would say, based on where I found them, I would say I wouldn't be surprised that these are the actual week 41 delivery numbers. And NIO there looks quite strong. In fact, if you look at week 40 and week 41 together, there should be just around 13,500 to 14,000 weekly deliveries, which is, just shy, a couple of thousand shy of what Tesla did. So it's looking quite great. Quickly looking at the, some other fundamentals, starting with the lithium carbonate price still in this, very nice 73,000 range. If you zoom out again, if you're new to this, you see that it's, essentially the recent increase over the past, let's say, couple of months from the bottoms here is essentially a blip on the radar once you zoom out. Now, if you also go to the batch swap information, give this webpage a follow. They do really, really great work. You can see that as we have the holidays over the past, week, let's say from the 1st of October through the 8th of October, there's a peak there. You can see in the orange moving average that during the holidays the Chinese population really enjoys their swap infrastructure in NIO, and they would average at around 140,000. So we are getting close to peaks of around 150,000 daily swaps. That is great to see, and it might sound like bonkers, but I would not be surprised to see 500,000 daily swaps in, let's say, 2 or 3 years from now, because at the rate that they are scaling up, it's truly amazing. Also, what I really, really like is the slowdown in the swap infrastructure build out. I think the current capacity for each of these stations on the Gen 4, they're also looking at Gen 5 very soon, but the Gen 4, they can handle 420 swaps on average in a single day. And we can see that they're averaging roughly 27 or so swaps per station on a single day, as you see on the left side here. So I would say there is huge potentials for NIO. The fundamentals are going in the right direction. We know that they raised a little bit of a capital over the past couple of weeks, past couple of months, but that was kind of expected. With that in mind, I would say that the stock price currently, to me, it's starting to get to a position where I'm really, really tempted to increase my position again. And I hope, obviously, that for the love of everyone, for the sake of everyone, that this doesn't end up being the same situation as, you know, what happened in 2020 and 2021. I really would urge the management and us as NIO supporters and followers to, you know, put a little bit of a pressure on the management to not make the mistakes of the past. You know, don't go out there and invest money in something that is not valuable for the shareholders. I would say, like, you know, continue on this path. You know, Onvo deliveries are looking really, really strong. I'm really impressed by Onvo. You know, they started very well with the Onvo L60, the first Onvo model, you know, a little bit more than a year ago, late September, early October of last year. But then they went very, very bullish by end of last year. They gave kind of guidances of the monthly deliveries for Onvo that was totally unrealistic. Once that was forgotten, you know, halfway through this year, in the summer, in the beginning of the summer, we start to see momentum in Onvo, and now they are doing, like, what? On a good week, they can do 4,000 weekly insurance registration numbers in China for Onvo. That is great. I mean, think about it. 4,000 already at the peaks. We could definitely see Onvo do 5,000 to 6,000 next year on average. Would I be surprised if NIO at the bare minimum does 150 to 200,000 cars next year just from Onvo sub-brand? Not at all, especially, you know, with the global expansion. And I do think that Onvo is priced much more realistically, and it's gonna be priced much more realistically outside China, i.e. like in the European Union, because although, you know, Europe is quite high income countries, most of the countries out there, Germany, Sweden, Norway, except Norway, you know, there's still very few NIOs out there, and I would say they are simply too expensive compared even to the likes of Xpeng, right? But I think the Onvo one is much more right profile for the European market. So I'm really, really looking for, like, growth in that sense as well in the exports. When you look at the 2026, hopefully we will start to see Onvo in the European market. Now, going to the stock price and the fundamentals again, for me, at this kind of valuation, 15 billion or so US dollar, this just doesn't make sense. Again, we all know that there's a company called Tesla out there. Like, if you go to my automotive list here, you can see the competitors like Tesla as the, like, bar setter for the EV market still, although they're facing some challenges. Then you have NIO and Xpeng, for example. Xpeng valued at 20 billion. Now with the, you know, delivery numbers that we are seeing ramping up in NIO and, like, keeping the same pace as essentially Xpeng, right? If you look at this graph here, for example, you can see Xpeng in the pink and NIO in the red. Beginning of the year, there was a huge difference between NIO and Xpeng. I mean, Xpeng was essentially outselling NIO by 2 to 1. Now, be it that they have average sales price that is lower. Obviously, if you sell lower priced cars, you will sell many more of them. There's many more consumers being able to buy them. So I understand that. But if you look at already now, it's a complete different story over the past, you know, 10, 15 weeks. Like, as we went into, let's say, late summer, entering into week 30 of the year, like end of July, you can see that the red bars that are NIO are getting close to the, you know, pink bars of Xpeng. So I don't see why NIO should be valued less than Xpeng currently. Whereas over the past 18 months, I've been very critical of NIO, and I think I have my reasons to be critical towards the NIO as stock, as management. Now that the dilution has been happened, you know, they are serious about becoming profitable. They're cutting costs everywhere they possibly can. Let's not forget the in-house NIO chip manufacturing. You know, they will save a lot of money, especially as the fabs. I mean, I also follow a lot of semiconductor space, and we know that TSMC's margin is shooting through the roof. And if you're buying your chips from, like, you know, your automotive full self-driving chips from the likes of NVIDIA, you know, gets price hikes from TSMC because it's riding on the AI market, kind of, you know, the demand there. So they're increasing their sales price across every single segment in, you know, AI market, in high performance computing, and, you know, in automotive and embedded and whatever it is. We know that NVIDIA will increase their sales, the average sales price for all the automotive chips that they are selling to multiple different OEMs, be it Xpeng, NIO, or traditional European automakers. So I really, really think that this bet on in-house chip making is starting to kind of pay back a little bit, at least in 2026 and onwards. Maybe they even introduce it across their entire, like, you know, lineup. And there's a future in which NIO can sell 500,000 cars already almost in 2026, and maybe getting close to that 1 million threshold maybe, I don't know, by the latest of 2028, most likely 2027 actually. Again, look at my own numbers here. Sure that the highest expectations for 2025, if we go back to late last year, was 450,000 deliveries based on an extreme bullish management. But once we started to hit, very low delivery numbers in the first quarter, 13 and 15,000 in the first quarter on average, then maybe getting around 20 to 25,000 in the second, we already knew that 450,000 would be just a dream. But still 326,000 that we are looking to be, looking at the end of the 2025 deliveries is still a substantial 50%, 40% increase year on year in terms of pure increase of sales on number of cars. Like any traditional OEM, any European OEM would give up a lot of things to have that kind of growth. You never see any traditional OEM have this kind of growth and at this kind of scales. Now NIO is not a small player. Sure, they're not like Volkswagen or BYD, but I would say, they're a significant player. 450,000 cars, 350,000 cars. That's nothing to laugh at. Look at for example, our very known Swedish brand Volvo. They're selling in a good year 700, 800, 900,000 cars. In a very good year. In a bad year, 600,000 cars. So it wouldn't be too long before NIO actually surpasses the likes of Volvo. And I would say by end of this decade or early next decade, they're gonna for sure be on par with at least Audi, I would say. At least Audi and maybe even BMW and Mercedes. Maybe that's a bit tougher ask, but I would say Audi is, the next target for the likes of NIO and even Xpeng and Li Auto. So in any case, I would say, I'm really, really finding, especially in this market, where everything is so highly valued. I understand that the AI market can continue for a while. The demand is out there. There's a lot of real things happening, video generation, image generation, even engineering kind of AIs that are helping companies left, right, and center. But I would say there's still some of these companies are just, the valuation on them is so bloated that it's very difficult to find a nice opportunity in the market. And maybe, for the past 4 years, difficulties, maybe NIO and even the likes of Xpeng is one of those occasions where they actually start to make sense. I don't see this valuation going much lower. The reason NIO went to 3 and 4, I would say, was there was a lot of risk for the company. They were struggling with the delivery numbers, especially, in the first half of this year. If you look at the weekly delivery numbers, again, the red bars, they were not doing that great, sitting around 4,000 to 7,000 at best case, but on average, maybe 4,500 on average in the first half of the year. In addition to, the huge money loss they were continuing, to do in every single quarter. If you go back already just a few quarters back in Q1, they made almost $1 billion or so loss. Q4 of last year, almost $1 billion loss. So there was quite a dire picture for NIO, right? But now they're already cutting down the losses. They cut down the loss compared to Q4 in 6 months by 300 million. I would easily see them to be a net loss less than $500 million or close to $500 million already in Q3. Maybe even just a couple of 100 million net loss in Q4. So there is no reason why NIO, in my opinion, should be valued this lowly. I think I said it, 3 months ago that I'd rather wait until the much expected dilution. And then when I'm quite confident that NIO will, let's say, be able to survive at least for the foreseeable future into 2030s, maybe the volume of sales start to creep back up, then I would much rather invest, NIO at this kind of prices. For example, 675, sure, you might argue I could have bought it at 5, at 4.5, maybe, sure. But now I'm very, very confident on NIO. Now I know that this company is not gonna disappear. I know their deliveries are going great. The management has finally reacted in a strong way. And, let's give credit to them. They are still in the play. They're still a very important player. And, let's forget all the negativity of the past 2 or 3 years. Let's combine our forces and try to look forward to what this company is going to be. And I would love to, actually buy a NIO car as my next car for sure. I've just heard great things about them. I've been test driving them a few times. And I think at the very least, they're a step up compared to even the Tesla. Sure. I know that Tesla might not be known mostly for their quality, but still, even the Tesla Model 3, I had one of them from 2023. It was a nice car, but the NIO is a clear step above Tesla. So let's hope that this company continues at its right path. And some of the fundamentals, lithium carbonate price seems to be very, very low. They're getting traction in the infrastructure, the battery swap infrastructure, the ability of them, having like close to 10 gigawatts soon. I mean, at very not distant future, they will have like around 10 gigawatts in terms of just batteries, power stations, small micro power stations, sit it out there on the roads, power balancing, maybe, in the night, in the evening, around after work, when everyone is going to charge and everyone is going to go home and cook, and there's a lot of load on the power grid, they might be able to balance a little bit and gain some money out. 10 gigawatts is nothing to laugh at, and they could start to scale that up even to 20 and 30. So I really now the momentum with NIO is changing quickly, in my opinion. Sure, if you come back to 2 quarters, 3 quarters from now, and the management has started to invest a lot of money again, and we start to see net losses around 5, 6, 700 million again, then we might really start to question the management. But I don't think so. I think they have finally understood the assignment. They understood that there has to be somewhat of a clear path to financial improvement. You cannot just continue invest money on other stuff and not make anything, not give anything back for your shareholders. Because if you do that, no one is going to buy the stock, right? If you tell me that NIO is going to burn money for 5 years ahead from now, that would be a decade of burning money, right? So who would want to invest in such company when any AI related company like 10x's in 2 years essentially, right? So there's alternative cost as well. So I would say the management has probably understood the assignment, and I'm really, really looking forward to next year. I mean, I can see NIO do like, let's see some of my targets for Q4 of next year, 165,000 cars. And even then, it could definitely be closer to 200,000 cars on Q4 of next year if everything is getting executed really, really well. So anyways, this was just a quick update on NIO, a longer update on NIO stock. I think I'm really, really tempted to get a much larger position again in NIO stock. And I'm very, very close to getting convinced that this is the right place, especially in this market when everything is elevated to the roof. And I simply think that the valuation is nothing to look away from. So anyways, thanks for your time. Please like and comment in the comment section. What's your point of view? Is this maybe the best investment opportunity in the market right now? I do believe this is definitely one of the best ones, at least in terms of opportunity wise. So see you next one.